Welcome, miladies of inestimable value. The greatest battles are the ones fought in silence, where no one sees the scars but you feel every cut. Being a Sigma isn't all mysterious stares, calculated moves, and the allure of being untouchable. Beneath the enigma lies a darker reality, a lonely battlefield most would never guess exists. Did you know that studies show people with highly independent personalities are more likely to suffer in silence, avoiding help even in the face of overwhelming struggles? The Sigma personality is no exception. The truth is, for every powerful stride a Sigma takes, there's a shadow lurking behind it, one filled with isolation, misunderstanding, and a relentless fight to stay authentic in a world that demands conformity. But don't worry, it's not all doom and gloom. After all, if Sigmas didn't know how to laugh at the absurdity of it all, they'd have gone rogue for real by now. Get ready to explore the unspoken truths that make the Sigma life both extraordinary and, frankly, a bit maddening. Number 1. Their detachment makes them seem heartless. Sigmas are masters of detachment. It's their way of staying grounded in a chaotic world, a shield they've built to protect their minds and emotions from unnecessary drama. But this ability to detach comes at a price. To those on the outside, it often feels like cold indifference, even when that couldn't be further from the truth. A Sigma may care deeply, but you wouldn't know it by their actions. They don't show their emotions the way most people do, and that makes them seem distant, almost unreachable. The real challenge lies in how this impacts their relationships. People often mistake a Sigma's calm, detached demeanor for a lack of empathy or interest, which leads to misunderstandings. They're seen as heartless when they choose logic over emotion, or as uncaring when they walk away from arguments instead of engaging in them. But for a Sigma, detachment is never about not caring, it's about protecting their peace. They refuse to get dragged into situations that drain them emotionally. Unfortunately, this self-preservation often backfires. While they're trying to maintain balance, others feel neglected or undervalued. Over time, this can push away even the people who truly matter to them. The Sigma doesn't intend to hurt anyone, but their inability or unwillingness to express their emotions in a traditional way leaves people guessing. And guessing in relationships rarely leads to connection. This is the paradox of being a Sigma. The very thing that gives them strength, detachment, can make them seem devoid of feeling. In their effort to remain grounded, they can leave others feeling unimportant. And in the end, the Sigma is left wondering why no one really understands them. It's a quiet, invisible struggle that they rarely talk about, but one they constantly feel. Number 2, their vision makes them misunderstood. Sigmas possess a vision that sets them apart from the crowd, a way of seeing the world that's nuanced, unconventional, and deeply introspective. They think in patterns, connect dots others don't even notice, and see potential in places where others see dead ends. This ability to think beyond the obvious makes them natural problem solvers and innovators, but it also places them in a constant state of misunderstanding. Most people are wired to operate within the framework of what's familiar and widely accepted. Sigmas, on the other hand, question that framework entirely. They challenge norms, question motives, and envision solutions that disrupt the status quo. To the average person, this thought process can seem confusing, even threatening. Their ideas are often dismissed as too far-fetched, too complex, or simply ahead of their time. This leaves Sigmas in an isolating position. They're not trying to be difficult or mysterious. They just genuinely see things differently. They may propose ideas or perspectives that are met with blank stares or skepticism, and over time, this repeated rejection makes them hesitant to share their thoughts at all. They learn to keep their vision to themselves, quietly working in the background, while the world continues to misunderstand their intentions. The irony is that many of the ideas dismissed by others are often proven right later, sometimes long after the Sigma has moved on. But by then, the damage is done. The Sigma is left feeling like a misunderstood genius, isolated not because they lack value, but because others couldn't see it at the time. It's a heavy burden to carry, knowing you see solutions in a world that clings to problems, yet having no one willing to hear you out. This constant cycle of brilliance and rejection shapes much of the Sigma's solitary path. Number 3. They're exhausted by being the lone problem solver. Sigmas often find themselves in the role of the lone problem solver, not because they ask for it, but because people naturally gravitate toward their calm and logical demeanor. They have a knack for cutting through the noise and finding solutions that others overlook, and this ability makes them indispensable in times of crisis. Whether it's resolving conflicts, strategizing solutions, or stepping up when everyone else is paralyzed, the Sigma is seen as the person who can handle anything. But this constant expectation comes at a cost. The weight of being the fixer for everyone else is exhausting. While others offload their problems onto the Sigma, rarely does anyone stop to ask how they're doing. It creates an unspoken dynamic where people rely on them without ever considering that they might need help too. Sigmas are left carrying the emotional and mental burdens of those around them, all while knowing that when their own struggles arise, they'll likely have to deal with those alone. What makes it even more draining is the unspoken obligations Sigmas feel. They don't want to let people down, but they also know that stepping in too often sets a precedent. People start to assume the Sigma will always have the answers. Over time, this creates resentment. They start to feel like a crutch for others while their own needs are ignored. This dynamic isolates them further. Asking for help feels foreign, even pointless, because they're so used to operating independently. It's a vicious cycle. They're the first to step up, but the last to receive support. And while they'll never admit it out loud, there's a quiet exhaustion in always being the one people turn to, but never the one people truly see. Number 4. Constant overthinking is their Achilles heel. The Sigma mind is a powerhouse of analysis, constantly dissecting, evaluating, and connecting dots that others don't even see. It's a gift that allows them to excel in problem-solving and navigate life with sharp precision. But this sharpness has a dark side: overthinking. For Sigmas, the mind rarely rests, endlessly replaying scenarios, imagining outcomes, and scrutinizing every interaction down to the smallest detail. They can turn the simplest decision into a labyrinth of possibilities, weighing every angle until they've exhausted themselves mentally. Did they say the right thing? Did they miss an opportunity? Could they have handled that situation better? Questions like these haunt their thoughts long after the moment has passed. While this relentless reflection can sometimes lead to insights, more often than not, it creates problems where none actually exist. This overthinking isn't limited to the past. Sigmas are also hyper-focused on the future, running through every possible contingency, trying to prepare for outcomes that might never even happen. It's as if their mind is on a constant loop, refusing to let them rest. They can analyze situations so deeply that they find themselves paralyzed, unable to act because they're consumed by what-ifs. What makes this internal struggle worse is their tendency to keep it to themselves. To the outside world, they seem calm and collected, but beneath the surface, their thoughts are racing. It's an invisible battle, one that drains their energy and makes even small issues feel overwhelming. Their sharp intellect becomes a double-edged sword, giving them incredible mental clarity, but also trapping them in a web of self-created doubts. While their overthinking helps them see every possibility, it also keeps them in a constant state of unease, making it one of the most taxing aspects of their otherwise brilliant mind. Number 5. Their aura intimidates potential allies. Sigmas have a natural aura of confidence and self-reliance that can command a room without them saying a word. This quiet intensity sets them apart, making them seem powerful, enigmatic, and untouchable. However, this same energy can unintentionally push others away, especially those who might have been allies or friends. People often misinterpret their composed demeanor as arrogance or disinterest, assuming that Sigmas don't need or want anyone in their corner. For potential allies, the Sigma's aura can be intimidating. Their self-assuredness makes others question their own worth, creating an invisible barrier that's hard to cross. Instead of viewing the Sigma as approachable, people see them as someone who's out of reach, someone who doesn't need emotional support or collaboration. This perception isn't always accurate, but it reinforces the Sigma's isolation. Those who could offer genuine connection hesitate, thinking the Sigma wouldn't value their presence. Sigmas, on the other hand, rarely go out of their way to dispel these assumptions. They're not interested in convincing others of their openness or vulnerability because they don't feel the need to explain themselves. But this creates a paradox. The more self-reliant and composed they appear, the more unreachable they seem. Over time, it becomes a self-perpetuating cycle. People keep their distance, and the Sigma, who might secretly crave meaningful connections, learns to expect this reaction. This misunderstanding leaves Sigmas in a lonely position. They're not deliberately cold or unapproachable, they simply operate differently. Yet their intensity, combined with the world's misinterpretation of their personality, can repel the very people who could bring balance to their lives. In their quest for independence, they often lose the opportunity to form the kind of deep alliances they secretly value but rarely express. Number 6. They struggle to switch off their analytical mind. For Sigmas, the world is a never-ending series of puzzles, and their minds are wired to solve them. This analytical approach serves them well in practical situations, allowing them to navigate challenges with precision and insight. However, when it comes to relationships and emotions, this trait becomes a double-edged sword. They can't help but approach people and situations the same way they would a complex problem, breaking everything down into its smallest components, searching for patterns, and trying to predict outcomes. In relationships, this analytical mindset can strip away the magic of spontaneity. Instead of simply enjoying a moment, a Sigma might find themselves dissecting it. What does this person's body language mean? What's the hidden motive behind their words? Is there a potential conflict brewing beneath the surface? Even genuine, heartfelt interactions can become overanalyzed to the point where they lose their warmth. This tendency also extends to their own emotions. Sigmas often try to intellectualize what they feel, treating emotions like equations to be solved rather than experiences to be embraced. While this helps them maintain control, it also creates a disconnect. Instead of fully immersing themselves in joy, love, or even grief, they're constantly stepping back, observing and questioning. This self-imposed detachment can make them seem cold or distant, even to those closest to them. Over time, this relentless need to analyze can become exhausting. The Sigma's mind rarely rests, and the constant scrutiny of every interaction or feeling prevents them from fully living in the moment. While their ability to think critically is one of their greatest strengths, it can also be their biggest barrier to forming deep, spontaneous human connections, leaving them craving the very joy their analysis often takes away. Number 7. They are perceived as arrogant, not independent. Sigmas pride themselves on their independence. They value self-sufficiency and take ownership of their decisions and path in life. To them, relying too much on others is a vulnerability they prefer to avoid. But this autonomy, which they see as a strength, is often misunderstood by those around them. Rather than being admired for their self-reliance, they're frequently perceived as arrogant or dismissive, as if they think they're too good for others. This misjudgment stems from the Sigma's quiet nature and intense focus. They aren't ones to seek validation or attention, which can make them appear uninterested in others. People often assume that their lack of outward engagement means they look down on those who operate differently. The Sigma doesn't go out of their way to explain or justify their actions, which only deepens the misunderstanding. The reality is far more nuanced. Sigmas aren't aloof because they think they're superior. They're just deeply engrossed in their own journey. They're careful about who they let into their world and selective about how they spend their energy. This focus can unintentionally come across as disinterest or even disdain, especially to those who are more extroverted or reliant on social affirmation. Unfortunately, this perception isolates Sigmas even further. People keep their distance, assuming the Sigma wouldn't care about forming connections. Meanwhile, the Sigma feels misjudged, misunderstood, and unfairly labeled. It's a lonely position to be in, knowing your independence is mistaken for arrogance. Sigmas don't see themselves as better than others. They simply prioritize their inner world over external validation. Yet the world often fails to see this distinction, leaving them trapped between their self-reliance and the labels others impose on them. Number 8. They attract envy without trying. Sigmas have a quiet confidence that doesn't rely on external validation, and this self-assuredness has a way of unsettling others. Unlike those who boast or seek approval, Sigmas simply exist in their natural state of independence and focus. Yet it's precisely this unbothered attitude that stirs up envy in those around them. People can't help but notice their calm presence, their ability to thrive without constant reassurance, and their refusal to conform to societal expectations, and it can make others feel inadequate in comparison. What's frustrating for Sigmas is that this envy often feels completely unwarranted. They're not trying to compete, outshine, or provoke anyone. They're simply focused on their own journey. Yet they find themselves the target of baseless jealousy or even outright hostility. Colleagues may suddenly see them as rivals. Friends might grow distant, convinced the Sigma is too perfect to relate to anymore. Strangers may project insecurities onto them, turning their admiration into quiet resentment. This envy is often fueled by projection. People see in the Sigma qualities they wish they possessed: confidence, independence, and an air of mystery. Instead of admiring these traits, many twist them into reasons for rivalry. Sigmas, who often operate outside the social games others play, are left baffled. They aren't interested in being anyone's competition, but they unknowingly become the standard others measure themselves against. This dynamic leaves the Sigma feeling alienated. They're not looking for attention or conflict, but their natural presence seems to draw it anyway. Over time, they learn to distance themselves even further, recognizing that their success and self-reliance will always attract envy from those who don't understand their quiet strength. It's an exhausting paradox, to be envied for qualities they never flaunted and for battles they never asked to fight. Number 9. They're overly reliant on themselves. Sigmas often live by the mantra, if you want something done right, do it yourself. While this self-reliant attitude helps them excel in many areas, it also becomes a heavy burden over time. They take pride in their ability to handle any situation, believing that no one else can meet their high standards. As a result, they rarely delegate tasks, even when they're overwhelmed. The thought of entrusting important responsibilities to others fills them with doubt and frustration. This constant drive to take on everything themselves can lead to burnout. They might be working late into the night, juggling countless projects and ignoring their own physical or mental well-being, all because they believe others can't do things as well as they can. The perfectionist streak in a Sigma can be exhausting, but it's not just about the work. It's about the need for control. They want things to unfold according to their vision, at their pace, and to their exact specifications. However, this insistence on self-sufficiency often isolates them further. They might refuse help from friends, colleagues, or loved ones, all because they're convinced that no one can perform at the level they expect. In doing so, they inadvertently shut people out, leaving themselves to bear the weight alone. It's a lonely position to be in, feeling that you can only rely on yourself and that nobody else can measure up. While this attitude can lead to impressive results, it also creates unnecessary stress. Sigmas push themselves to the brink, not because they have to, but because they've convinced themselves that no one else is worthy of carrying the load. This over-reliance on themselves ultimately takes a toll, physically, emotionally, and mentally. And ironically, it's often when they're most exhausted that they need help the most, but their pride and standards keep them from asking for it. Number 10. They feel like outsiders everywhere they go. Sigmas often find themselves feeling like outsiders no matter where they go. Even when they're included in social gatherings or surrounded by people, there's an undeniable sense of detachment. They might sit at the table, engage in conversation, and even contribute, but inside, they're a spectator, observing the world around them rather than truly participating. It's not that they don't want to connect, it's that the connection feels forced, shallow, or simply out of sync with their inner world. Their inability to align with societal norms only intensifies this feeling. While others naturally fall into established roles or routines, Sigmas often question the very structures they're expected to follow. They don't thrive in the typical frameworks of social interaction. whether it's office politics, the pressure to conform to groupthink, or the relentless chase for social validation. Their resistance to following the crowd leaves them on the fringes, never quite fitting in, even when they're physically present. This detachment isn't a choice, but rather a consequence of their deeply introspective nature. Sigmas spend more time reflecting on their thoughts and the bigger picture, which makes it hard to buy into the small talk and surface-level exchanges others are comfortable with. They don't connect with people in the conventional ways, and that's why they often feel like an outsider. They see the world through a different lens, and it's hard to find others who share the same perspective. As time goes on, this sense of detachment can turn into loneliness. Sigmas might crave deep, meaningful connections, but they rarely find a group where they feel understood. They are often caught between wanting to belong and recognizing that perhaps they never will. This duality leaves them with a persistent, quiet ache, a feeling of being just outside the circle, always watching, never fully immersed. Being a Sigma comes with a unique set of challenges that many people fail to grasp. They're often misunderstood, isolated, and burdened by their own self-reliance and high standards. The very traits that make them exceptional, confidence, independence, and intellect, can also create barriers, pushing others away and leaving them feeling like outsiders in a world that values conformity. Their silent struggles, though invisible to most, shape their lives in profound ways. Yet, despite the loneliness and frustration, Sigmas remain unwavering in their pursuit of personal growth and authenticity. In the end, their journey is not about fitting into societal molds or gaining the approval of others. It's about forging a path that aligns with their inner truth, no matter how isolating or misunderstood it may be. While the world may view them as distant or unreachable, the Sigma knows that true fulfillment lies not in being seen by others, but in seeing themselves for who they truly are. They may walk a lonely road, but it's one they've chosen, and in the end, they walk it with purpose, strength, and a quiet knowing that they are indeed exactly where they need to be. If you found value in this deep dive into the Sigma experience, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay updated with more insightful content. Like this video if you can relate, or drop a comment to share your thoughts. I'm always interested in hearing your perspective. And if you think someone else would benefit from hearing this, go ahead and share it with them. Your support helps us grow and reach even more people who need to hear this message. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, my ladies. See you in the next video. Bye for now, and God bless.